Hello students, so we have completed division algae in this chapter, and in this lesson we are going to start with division Bryophyta. This is the second division that developed after division algae. Algae were entirely aquatic, however Bryophytes came out of the water and became amphibians of the plant kingdom. Just like in animals, the Pisces were aquatic and then the amphibians were formed. Amphibians were on land but they were still dependent on water, isn't it? And then they moved further away and then they became terrestrial reptiles. That is what happened in the animals. How about plants? Algae were entirely aquatic and then the plants started moving out of the water onto the land. However, they still remained dependent on water and they became the amphibians of the plant kingdom. They came to be called as Bryophytes. They are known as the amphibians of plant kingdom, also called as terrestrial amphibians. Not strictly terrestrial, but terrestrial amphibians. Did they attain great heights like the algae in water? No. They could attain very small heights. Any which ways they did not have vascular tissues in them to be able to supply to great lengths. So they had to be close to the ground and absorb the water and the nutrients from the soil itself. They could not attain great heights. Small heighted plants. They were non-vascular, just like the algae. Non-vascular meaning did not have xylem and phloem developed. Found in moist, damp, shady places. Because they do not want to be desiccated, they want to be as close to water as possible, and that too in shady places. They will be found along the banks of the rivers, on the walls of tanks, etc., wherein they have a lot of proximity to water. Okay, and of course in places which are very wet with a lot of rainfall. Bryophytes are of three different types: liverworts, hornworts, and mosses in this line of evolution, and out of which we are going to discuss only the liverworts and mosses in NCERT. In algae, the main plant body was the gametophyte. If you remember, it was a haploid, photosynthetic, thalloid plant body, which was the dominant phase of the life cycle. The sporophyte generation was only one-celled zygote that did not undergo the process of mitosis to form an embryo. Algae were non-embryophytes because the zygote did not undergo mitosis to produce another cell, no mitotic divisions to produce 2n embryo. They were non-embryophytes. Instead, the zygote underwent the process of meiosis and immediately broke into 4 haploid cells, and then the haploid cells became spores and then they produced new gametophytes, the main plant bodies. Gametophyte generation was followed by sporophyte and sporophyte generation was followed by gametophyte, wherein the gametophyte was the main plant generation. That life cycle was called as the haplontic life cycle because the haploid bodies, the gametophytes, are more dominant phases of the life cycle. Next, in the evolutionary lineage, the Bryophytes arrive. How has evolution affected the Bryophytes? Are there any changes in the gametophyte and sporophyte? In the Bryophytes, the zygote undergoes mitosis. It undergoes mitosis. It produces many 2n cells and produces an embryo. The sporophyte, which was one cell thick only in algae, now becomes comparatively bigger in size in case of the Bryophytes. Okay, and produces an embryo. Bryophytes are said to be the first embryophytes of the plant kingdom. In pteridophytes, which is the next division, the sporophyte becomes considerably bigger and forms the main plant body. In angiosperms, the big trees itself are the sporophytes, the 2n generation. Fine? This is what is being seen in evolution. In algae, the sporophyte was just one cell thick. In Bryophytes, it is gaining considerable size and becoming larger in size, but not the main plant body though. Okay, the main plant body is still the gametophyte in case of the Bryophytes. Sporophyte has attained considerable size, however, it is still mounted onto the gametophyte for its survival. The main plant body is the gametophyte. Main plant body is the gametophyte, which is the haploid generation, and sporophyte is the zygote that undergoes mitosis to produce multicellular sporophyte, which will be 2n. Therefore, Bryophytes are called first embryophytes. I'm drawing a simple structure of a moss here. This is a moss. Then we say that this is the gametophyte, and this structure right here is the sporophyte, which will be 2n. Gametophyte is n haploid structure, and if you see, the sporophyte is mounted onto the gametophyte is the dominant independent photosynthetic thalloid structure. This is the dominant phase of the life cycle. It's independent photosynthetic thalloid structure. Okay, this is the main plant body. Main plant body. It is said to have a root-like, shoot-like and leaf-like structures, which are root-like, shoot-like and leaf-like structures, not shoot, root and leaf. If you see some root kind of structures over here, these are root-like structures, they are not roots. Some leafy kind of things you will see, they are not leaves, they are leaf-like structures. Why leaf-like and root-like structures? Because the body is a haploid structure, it's gametophyte. For thing to be proper root, shoot and leaf, they have to be part of the sporophyte generation 2N, which is not applicable over here. These root-like structures are called as rhizoids. Rhizoids are the root-like structures and they are said to be unicellular in case of liverworts and they are said to be multicellular in case of mosses. Sporophyte is the dependent phase, dependent on gametophyte. It is said to be parasitic on gametophyte. The details of these two generations we will see when we are looking at the life cycles of liverworts and mosses. The plant body is said to be dorsiventral in case of the liverworts and erect, upright in case of the moss. This diagram that you see over here is of a moss. Okay, and as you can see, the body is upright. In case of the liverworts, it's more flattened onto the surface of the ground. We can add that in liverworts it is dorsiventral and thalloid, and in case of the moss it is erect, upright and leafy. Bryophytes are known to play an important role in the plant succession on the rocks, and they have importance right after lichens. Okay, lichens are the most important ones in soil formation and these guys follow later. They play an important role in plant succession on bare rocks and their importance is right after lichens. Means lichens are said to be the pioneers of plant succession on bare rocks. If there is a bare rock, the lichens will appear there first, followed by bryophytes. Lichens are said to be the pioneers of plant succession. You will study more about it in 12th standard. So that was about the introduction of bryophytes. What do you have to know about the bryophytes? They came out of water on land, but they are still dependent on water. That's why they are the amphibians of plant kingdom. They seldom attain great heights. Okay, and the body can be either dorsiventral or erect. The male plant body is the gametophyte, which is haploid, and sporophyte has become multicellular in bryophytes, becoming an embryo. So they are the first embryophytes of the plant kingdom. The plant body is thalloid, root-like, leaf-like and shoot-like structures are present. The root-like structures are called as rhizoids, which are haploid. They will be unicellular in case of the liverworts and multicellular in case of the mosses. Now we are going to look at the liverworts in more detail.
महादेव के नाम पे सब्सक्राइब कर दें।